Note, collect perennial seeds in August, sell them now or save for later. Hello garden friends and welcome back to Earthly Delights. If you're watching this, chances are you see your garden not just as a patch of soil, but as a living companion. One that changes with the seasons, teaches you patience, and rewards you with color, fragrance, and peace of mind. You're the type of person who can't walk past a flower without pausing to admire its details, who saves little cuttings on the windowsill just to see if they'll grow, and who believes that a handful of soil can carry both memory and possibility. Now here we are in August, a month many people think of as the winding down of summer. But if you look closely, this is actually one of the most powerful turning points of the gardening year. Those fading blooms in your beds are not signs of an ending. They're signs of new beginnings waiting to happen. Seeds are forming quietly, almost secretly, holding next year's garden in their tiny shells. And today I want to take you by the hand and show you how August can become your most important seed gathering season, whether you want to sow them right away or save them for spring. So stay with me till the very end, because together we're not just collecting seeds, we're collecting future gardens, future colors, and future moments of joy. And if you're new here or simply love discovering the secrets of a thriving home garden, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to join the Earthly Delights community. 1. Why August is the secret season for seed collecting. As gardeners, we often think of August as the month when our plants begin to tire, when blooms fade and leaves droop under the late summer sun. But here's the hidden truth. August isn't just about endings, it's about beginnings wrapped in tiny, unassuming packages. Seeds. Right now, in the quiet of your garden, those dry flower heads and fading petals are preparing the next generation. And if you lean in, if you pay attention, you'll see that August is the perfect season to collect these gifts from nature. Think of it this way. When you gather seeds, you're not just saving money or filling a paper envelope. You're carrying forward a story, your garden story, that daisy you admired in June, the foxglove that stood tall in July, or the hollyhock that waved proudly in the breeze. They can all live again next year, stronger and more abundant, because you took a moment now to notice. And here's the beautiful part. Seed collecting is not complicated. You don't need fancy tools or hours of free time. What you need is exactly what you already have. The gardener's eye for detail, the patience to wait for ripeness, and the love that makes you pause at the swout of a seed head ready to release its treasure. So before you let August slip by as just another hot, weary month, take a closer look. This is the moment when next year's garden begins. And in the next part, I'll show you the simple tools and tricks that will make seed collecting not only easy, but one of the most rewarding habits you'll ever add to your gardening journey. 2. Simple tools and clever tricks every gardener can use. Now that you understand why August is such a powerful moment for collecting seeds, let's talk about something every gardener wonders. What do I actually need to get started? The truth is, seed collecting doesn't demand shiny gadgets or expensive kits. In fact, some of the best tools are already sitting in your kitchen drawer or tucked away in your recycling bin. Picture yourself walking through your garden with nothing more than a pair of scissors, a paper bag, and maybe an old yogurt tub. That's really all it takes. Paper envelopes or brown lunch bags are my personal favorite because they breathe. They keep seeds dry without trapping moisture that can cause mold. If you're the type of gardener who loves organization, and I know many of you are, don't forget a simple pen and label, because trust me, 3 months from now, every little seed will look the same unless you've written down its name. Gloves are another quiet hero in this process. Some seed heads, like blanket flowers, can feel prickly or rough on bare skin. A light pair of gardening gloves will make you braver when reaching into those seed clusters. And as for containers, don't be afraid to repurpose. A wide-rimmed bowl or an old tin can work perfectly to catch seeds before the wind carries them away. The magic lies not in the tools themselves, but in the way you use them. With just a little attention, you transform these everyday items into vessels of possibility. In the next section, we'll step beyond the how and into the why, uncovering the joy and the surprising benefits of saving seeds from your own garden. 3. The joy of saving money and growing more from your own garden. Here's where the real excitement begins. When you collect seeds from your own garden, you're not just tucking away a little bag of future flowers. You're unlocking abundance. Think about it. A single daisy or hollyhock can give you dozens, sometimes hundreds of seeds. That means next year you won't have just one proud bloom standing in the sun. You could have an entire patch, waving together like a chorus of color. And the best part? It costs you nothing but a little time and care. For many of us, gardening is already an investment of love and patience. But it's also true that buying new plants each season adds up. Seed collecting flips that story. Instead of reaching for your wallet at the nursery, you reach into your own envelope of treasures. You become not only the gardener, but the supplier, multiplying your favorites again and again. And there's another layer of joy here, the gift of sharing. When you find yourself with more seeds than you could ever possibly use, imagine passing them to a neighbor, tucking them into a letter for a friend, or swapping them at a local garden club. Suddenly, your garden isn't just growing at home. It's growing across fences, into other yards, and even into other hearts. So the next time you catch yourself hesitating, wondering if it's worth the effort, remember this. Every seed you collect is a little act of generosity, both to your future self and to those around you. And as we move forward, I'll show you how different flowers, like the cheerful daisies, can be your first step in this rewarding cycle. 4. Learning from the daisies. How to know when seeds are ready. Let's begin our journey with one of the most familiar and beloved flowers in the garden, the daisy. Whether you grow Shasta daisies or those cheerful, playful, crazy daisies, they carry a lesson every gardener should know. Timing is everything. When you first look at a daisy that's gone past its prime, you might only see a faded bloom. But hidden inside that withered head is the promise of next year's flowers, waiting quietly for you to notice. The trick lies in knowing when those seeds are truly ready. If you run your thumb gently across the center of the bloom and the tiny seeds slide out easily, that's your signal. It means the seeds have dried enough to break free and they're ripe for collecting. If they still cling tightly, or if you see a lot of green, give them more time. Patience here is a gardener's secret weapon. Collecting too early leaves you with empty shells instead of living seeds. Once you've found the right ones, all you need is a simple container, something wide enough to catch those tiny flecks as you snip the heads and shake them loose. Some gardeners like to cut back the stems immediately, keeping the plant neat, while others leave a few blooms to scatter seeds naturally, ensuring a surprise return next year. Both approaches are valid. It depends on whether you like control or a touch of wild charm in your beds. And that's the beauty of daisies. They remind us that gardening isn't about perfection, but about rhythm and trust. From this simple act of noticing and waiting, you'll step into a whole new way of seeing your flowers, not just as this year's beauty, but as the keepers of next year's garden. In the next part, we'll move from soft petals to something a little bolder. The blanket flower, a plant that teaches us resilience and color right up until frost. 5. Blanket flowers gathering color and resilience in every seed. Now let's turn our eyes to a flower that never seems to quit, the blanket flower or Gaillardia. If daisies whisper of patience, blanket flowers shout of resilience. These fiery blooms keep shining long after other perennials have begun to fade, covering the garden in waves of red, gold, and orange right up until the first frost. And when their pom-poms dry, they hold seeds that are as generous as the blooms themselves. You'll know the seeds are ready when the flower heads feel rough and spiky, almost prickly to the touch. This is where a good pair of gloves comes in handy. Slip your fingers around a dried pom-pom and gently pull. It will come apart easily, releasing seeds that look like tiny bristles. Some gardeners even like to deadhead part of the plant early, encouraging more blossoms while leaving others to mature into seeds. It's a balance, beauty now or abundance later. What I love about blanket flowers is that they don't demand perfection. Even if you miss a few seed heads and they scatter on their own, you'll find cheerful seedlings popping up next spring, ready to carry on the cycle. For those of you who love vibrant borders or want to fill empty spaces with low-maintenance bursts of color, saving blanket flower seeds is like tucking away sparks of sunlight for the future. And remember, every seed you collect from a blanket flower isn't just a duplicate of what you grew this year. It's a promise of resilience, of color that refuses to fade. Next, we'll explore Coreopsis, also known as tick seed, a plant whose seed pods can teach us the art of careful timing and gentle handling. 6. Coreopsis, the gentle art of timing and abundance. From the fiery tones of blanket flowers, let's shift to the golden cheer of Coreopsis, often called tick seed. These sunny blooms may look delicate, but they're masters of endurance, brightening beds and borders with effortless charm. When their petals fall away, what remains are tiny seed pods, quiet little vessels packed with next year's glow. The key here is timing, because Coreopsis seeds are notorious for slipping away before you can catch them. If you wait too long, the pods crack open and scatter their treasure to the wind. But if you get there just before they split, you'll gather the richest harvest. A gentle snip with your scissors or pruners is all it takes. Then tip the pod over a container and watch the dark, slender seeds fall like tiny sparks. Don't worry if some pods have already burst. There's still plenty left clinging inside. And even a partial harvest gives you more than enough to start again. What makes Coreopsis special is its generosity. Each plant produces so many seeds that you can easily create swaths of golden blooms wherever you please. Imagine transforming a bare patch of soil into a meadow-like display, or gifting packets of sunshine-colored seeds to friends and neighbors. In doing so, you're not just spreading flowers, you're spreading joy. And here's a tip many gardeners overlook. Keep up with deadheading while collecting. Each snip encourages the plant to keep blooming right through summer and into autumn, all while offering you more pods to save. It's a win-win rhythm of beauty and abundance. From these golden companions, we move next to Sweet Williams and Foxgloves, two plants that carry a touch of cottage magic and a lesson in collecting before nature takes back her gift. 7. Sweet Williams and Foxgloves, cottage charm in every seed. Now we arrive at two flowers that feel like they were made for storybook gardens. Sweet Williams and Foxgloves. These plants don't just bloom, they enchant. Their colors, their shapes, their way of filling a corner with quiet romance. No wonder so many cottage gardens would feel incomplete without them. And the best part? Both of these beauties reward you with seeds that are as easy to collect as they are delightful to grow. So, Sweet Williams are generous, but you have to act quickly. Their tiny black seeds begin to tumble out almost as soon as the pods ripen. If you wait too long, the wind and rain will claim them before you do. The best approach is to cut the drying seed heads and place them into a paper bag, letting them finish drying safely where no breeze can steal them. Later, when you sprinkle them back into your beds, it feels like scattering tiny wishes across the soil. Foxgloves, on the other hand, offer a slightly different rhythm. Their tall stalks hold dozens of pods, ripening from the bottom upward. You can collect them individually, but many gardeners simply cut the whole stalk, turn it upside down, and shake. Out falls a cascade of fine seeds, enough to fill shady corners or add towering drama along a fence. What's magical about foxgloves is how natural the process feels, almost like helping nature finish what she began. Both plants remind us that gardening is part science, part story. By gathering their seeds, you're not just ensuring another year of beauty, you're preserving a sense of timeless charm, the kind that makes visitors stop and smile. And as we move forward, I'll share an important reminder about sterile hybrids. Why not every seed you collect will bring new life, and how knowing the difference can save you both time and heartache. 8. Knowing the difference why some seeds never sprout. Up until now, we've been talking about the joy of collecting seeds as if every dried bloom holds a future garden. But here's the truth many gardeners discover only after some frustration. Not every seed you collect will actually grow, and the reason often comes down to one word: hybrids. Some plants, like certain coneflowers, may still produce seeds, but those seeds are sterile. They look promising, But when you scatter them into the soil, nothing happens. It can feel discouraging, especially when you've put your heart into saving them. But knowing this difference saves both time and energy. If you've ever collected seeds only to watch an empty patch of soil in spring, you're not alone. This is part of the gardener's learning curve. It isn't failure, it's discovery. Once you learn which varieties are hybrids and which are true to type, you can focus your efforts where they'll actually pay off. For example, many heritage or open-pollinated perennials will faithfully sprout from seed, giving you plants that mirror their parents. So how do you avoid disappointment? The simplest way is to check your plant labels when you buy them. If they're labeled as hybrids, don't waste your time saving those seeds. Instead, plan to propagate those plants by division or cuttings. That way, you'll still expand your garden without waiting for seeds that will never grow. Think of it as gardening wisdom passed down by experience. Every seed has a story, but not every story has a sequel. When you understand which seeds hold life and which do not, you step into the role of a more mindful gardener, someone who works alongside nature with patience and clarity. And from here, we'll move into one of the most enchanting perennials of all, the Columbine, whose seeds bring a burst of early blooms that light up spring like no other. 9. Columbine scattering early blooms for a magical spring. From the lessons of sterile seeds, let's turn to a plant that always seems to repay our efforts with charm and abundance. The Columbine or Aquilegia. These delicate, nodding flowers may look fragile, but they're among the easiest and most rewarding perennials to save seeds from. And here's their gift. They bloom early, often long before the summer stars of the garden take their turn. By collecting and sowing Columbine seeds now, you're setting the stage for a spring that feels like a fairy tale. The seed pods of Columbine are slender and pointed, almost like little lanterns. Once they dry, they split open with the lightest touch, spilling glossy black seeds. You can clip the pods and drop the seeds directly where you want them, or gather them into a paper envelope for later. Either way, they rarely disappoint, and unlike hybrids, Columbines reseed freely, sometimes even surprising you by popping up in places you never expected. For some gardeners, this natural wandering is part of their magic. It's as if the garden is painting itself. What makes Columbine seeds even more special is the role they play in design. Imagine scattering them along a garden path so that each spring you're greeted by a ribbon of soft blues, purples, or pinks, or tucking them at the edge of a shady corner where their delicate flowers catch the morning light. They're not just plants, they're brushstrokes of color that arrive when the rest of the garden is still waking. And here's a secret many longtime gardeners will tell you. Once you grow Columbines, you'll always have them. They reseed, they spread, and they weave themselves into the fabric of your garden like an old friend who never overstays their welcome. From here, we'll move to two more bold companions, Hollyhocks and rose campion, whose seeds carry the drama and brightness of summer into the future. 10. Hollyhocks and rose campion, bold colors that carry on through seeds. As we leave behind the gentle elegance of Columbines, it's time to step into the bold drama of hollyhocks and the vibrant brightness of rose campion. These two flowers have very different personalities, yet both share one thing in common. They leave behind seeds that seem almost eager to keep the show going year after year. Hollyhocks are the giants of the cottage garden, standing tall like sentinels. Their blooms stacked in layers of pinks, reds, whites, and yellows. When their papery seed pods turn brown and crisp, that's your cue. Inside each disc-like pod are dozens of flat seeds ready to be sown. Some gardeners like to scatter them right away, letting the weather press them naturally into the soil. Others tuck them away for spring sowing. Either way, hollyhocks often act as biennials, blooming in their second year, but they reseed so readily that you'll feel as though they're always present, waving at you from the back of the border. Rose campion, by contrast, is all about vibrancy and surprise. Its bright fuchsia blooms pop against silvery green foliage, and when the flowers fade, they leave behind these small pods packed with shiny black seeds. Collecting them is simple. Just crack open a dried pod and watch as dozens of seeds spill into your hand. Left on their own, rose campion reseeds generously, often showing up in corners of the garden where you least expected. Some gardeners find this wandering habit a nuisance, but for many, it's a delightful gift, a reminder that beauty doesn't always need to be planned. Together, hollyhocks and rose campion teach us about abundance and generosity. They remind us that some of the boldest colors in our gardens don't just fade away. They prepare for encore after encore. And as we move forward, we'll look at other treasures like delphiniums and Jupiter's beard, plants whose seeds may be smaller, but carry just as much promise for next season's show. 11. Delphiniums and Jupiter's beard, tiny seeds with big rewards. From the towering spires of hollyhocks, let's move into the quieter elegance of delphiniums and the airy charm of Jupiter's beard. These two may not shout with the same boldness, but their seeds hold treasures just as valuable, if you have the patience to gather them. Delphiniums are beloved for their majestic spikes of blue and purple. But once the petals fall, what remains are slender pods filled with seeds so tiny you might mistake them for specks of dust. Collecting them takes care. Snip a dried stalk, turn it gently over a white sheet of paper or a tray, and you'll see the seeds tumble out like fine grains. It's almost magical to think that something so small can grow into a plant that towers over your garden, adding structure and drama where you need it most. Jupiter's beard, on the other hand, scatters its seeds with the wind, using little tufts of fluff to drift across the garden. If you wait too long, nature does the work for you. But if you want to guide where it grows, you can catch the seed heads just as they dry. Hold them over a container, rub gently, and the fluffy seeds fall into your hand. They germinate easily, which means you can quickly create drifts of white or red blooms that butterflies and bees will thank you for. Together, delphiniums and Jupiter's beard remind us that size doesn't dictate importance. Even the tiniest seeds can transform a garden bed, bringing color, height, and movement. And collecting them teaches us patience, the kind of patience that makes gardening more than a hobby. Up next, we'll step back and talk about something that affects every seed you gather, how your local climate and timing play a bigger role than you might expect. 12. Climate and timing, why your garden's clock is unique. Now that we've explored so many different flowers, it's important to pause and talk about something that quietly shapes every seed you collect: the rhythm of your local climate. You see, no two gardens follow the exact same clock. A gardener in Texas may find seeds ripening weeks before a gardener in Washington, even though both share the same USDA zone number. That's because it isn't just about zones. It's about the unique dance between temperature, rainfall, and sunlight in your own corner of the world. Maybe this August your days have been cooler than usual, stretching the ripening process into late summer. Or perhaps you've had a heat wave, pushing flowers to seed weeks earlier than expected. This variability is not a sign that you're doing anything wrong. It's simply nature's way of reminding us that gardens respond to the environment year by year. The more you pay attention to your own microclimate, the shady corners, the hot southern walls, the damp spots after rain, the more successful you'll be at timing your seed harvest. So instead of worrying about matching someone else's schedule, trust your garden signals. Are the seed heads turning brown and brittle? Do they fall into your hand with a gentle touch? Then the time is right, no matter what the calendar says. This mindful approach transforms seed collecting from a task into a partnership. You and your garden working together, season after season. And as we bring this journey to a close, let's step back and look at the bigger picture. Why collecting perennial seeds in August is more than just a gardening chore. It's a tradition, a gift, and a way to carry your garden story into the future. Carrying your garden into the future. And so, dear friends, we come full circle. What may have begun as a fading bloom in August now becomes a promise tucked into the palm of your hand. Collecting seeds isn't just about saving money or multiplying your plants. It's about honoring the cycle of life in your garden. Each seed carries a memory of this summer's colors, scents, and quiet mornings, and each one holds the possibility of an even richer season to come. When you gather seeds, you're doing what gardeners have done for centuries, passing life forward. It's a simple act, but also a profound one. You're saying, this garden matters, and I want it to keep growing. Whether you scatter those seeds today or tuck them away for spring, you're shaping the story of your own earthly delight. So as you walk your garden this week, don't just see endings, see beginnings. Notice the dry pods, the rattling heads, the whisper of seeds ready to fall. Take a moment, collect them, and know you're holding next year's beauty in your hands. And now I'd love to hear from you. Which perennials are you most excited to collect seeds from this season? Have you had surprises pop up in places you never expected? Share your stories in the comments. I read them all, and they inspire this growing community. If you haven't already, subscribe to Earthly Delights so you won't miss our next journey into the secrets of gardening. Until then, may your seeds be plentiful, your soil welcoming, and your garden forever full of life.